Hello there guys, welcome back to another Princess Connect video. Today we're going to be showing you a couple of tips for whenever you start off this game. When I started this game, nobody told me anything, so I have to learn as I go. But today I'm going to show you a few things that could be very useful. So let's go look at it. A generic team building. Some generic characters that you can use when going through the game. If you didn't pull like a bunch of overpowered 3-star characters, there's still some options for you even available. So right from the get-go, they give you Pecorine, which later on down the line, after you give her a couple of equipment and a couple of upgrades, she actually becomes one of the best tanks endgame. So very quickly she can become a very good tank that can do a lot of tanking, a lot of quick going through the game. Yui is a fantastic healer that can just eventually really maintain your healing throughout the entire time. Yukari is a great 1-star to give you a TP boost overall, and also gives you a magical shield. So you have your physical defense covered with Yui, and then you have your magical defense covered with Yukari. So these three 1-star characters are extremely good for basically all content. So I would definitely recommend working on these three right from the get-go. We still have some great options for later on down the line. And for example, one of the better characters that we have available to us, which is also a 1-star character, is actually Ray, because later on down the line, she also gets a very nice boost by getting a defense break on her sword and allowing us to do a lot of damage to a single target. But if you're going for more of a multi-build, the Chiaro they give you at the very beginning is pretty good for both getting yourself some magical damage and some physical damage. So overall, this team right here is a very well-rounded, balanced team, and they're all 1-stars. So very easy to just mix and match with any team together. So I would definitely recommend these 5 1-star characters to work on. Now, Kokoro herself isn't bad either. If you wanted to get a little bit more advantage on the overall, you can always remove any of the 3 in the middle, and you can add Kokoro, and it should probably be fine. Ray is going to be most of your damage though, so unless you have another character, maybe someone like Tamaki, or maybe someone like Shiori, which this count did not pull, but there are plenty of other options as well. Obviously, since I did get a 3-star character, I'm probably going to go for a 3-star Christina, who will always start off with a defense break on her first skill, so it's pretty good already. And then in my case, since I managed to get a pretty good magical girl, I'm also going to take Kyoka instead. And this should really help out my team very well. Next would be, so this game is a little different in the terms of stamina. So normally games you have your potions where you can use potions to recover stamina. In this game's case, because you get such an absorbent amount of jewels, there's actually a benefit to using a couple of your jewels every day to refill your stamina. And the reason for this is because if you do it, the first 3 times you purchase jewels, it only costs 40 jewels. So doing 3 refreshes a day, or 3 buys a day, is pretty good because it'll give you a total of 360 extra stamina every single day. That's an extra 36 stages you can make progression through, not counting the lower stages. So it's really good. And in this game, sometimes there is double drop rates or even triple drop rates. When those events are happening, I would even argue that it's worth it to do 6 times, even though the price goes from 40 to 60, only because you're getting 720 stamina, so 72 stages, but you're doubling the amount of rewards you're getting. You're essentially doing, you're essentially getting the price of 3 stamina refills for those other 3 extra you get as well. So it's pretty good. It's a little bit extra, and I think it's definitely worth using some of your resources to make some progression. So keeping a couple in reserve just to make sure to do your daily refreshes, I think it's pretty worth it. Tip number 3. Even though divine amulets are very, you get them mostly from pulling and sometimes from events, they're kind of a limited resources, so you should be spending them on your limited characters, such as Christina or Mumi, or any of the other characters that are limited time. But it is okay to use some of your divine amulets. It is alright to, at the very beginning when you start off this game, so for example, when you start off with 1-star characters, getting them to 2-star isn't too bad of an idea. So if I buy 20, it would only cost me 20 divine amulets. So I'm going to buy the Pecorine, and then I'm going to go ahead and just buy, I'm not going to buy 20, I'm not going to buy a 20 again, but I am going to buy 10, which is going to be 30, which is enough to ascend Pecorine to a 2-star, which will be very good. So So I can go here, and if I ascend it, she's going to be a little bit stronger. And I'm going to do this for all my 1-star characters to just make them a little bit stronger, to make a little bit more progression. So we're going to spend a little bit of Divine Amulets on these starter characters. I was one Divine Amulet short from 2-star and Carrier as well, but I think this is a pretty good lineup. And we're going to see if we can make this work. Again, not using Mumi, not using Christina, not using Ruka, not using Kyoka or Maho. However, these 5 are still extremely good and definitely would change like anything between, for example, your DPS. If you didn't get Christina, if you got Christina or you got Mumi, you replace it with Rei. If you get a tank like June, Ruka, Nozomi, you replace it with Pekka, because a 3-star is always going to be a little bit stronger than a 2-star. But later on, all these characters can become 3-star as well. Kyoka, you would replace someone like Hyaru, and then Maho, you could replace with Yui. Yui is still a very strong character, even as a 2-star, so it's really a matter of choice there. But I'd say Yui's still pretty good enough to just keep on the team no matter what. And then Yukari could be your one character that you can keep in almost no matter what, just because she kind of mixes and mashes really well with like any team. So she's just like Yui. Yukari and Yui are like very splashable on a lot of teams. These are especially since they're healers. Another tip is make sure to do a daily link or an account link, because if you do, you'll get yourself an extra 1,000 jewels. If you link yourself with a Crunchyroll account, you get an extra 1,000 jewels as well. So I'll probably end up doing that later, but because of that, we got ourselves 1,000 jewels here. I mean, we got a several level up right there, so that's pretty nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually use these 1,500. This banner is fine, especially as a new player, to pull on a bit even after you get the characters, just because there's a high rate up for a lot of characters and a chance to get a lot of Divine Amulets early on. I wouldn't normally splash on a new account. I would try to save up, especially since I have both the rate up characters, but because it's a new account and there is a 5% chance to get characters, since it's such a good raid, I think it's worth going in and just pulling. So I'm going to do another pull. See if we can get a 3-star. No 3-stars. However, I did this mainly because I wanted to get that last Divine Amulet for Kyaru. We even got a new character there, so we're gonna go ahead and buy this Kyaru Amulet. So these last shards, so not 20. And there we go. We have our 2-star Kyaru now. And the bonus shop. Now, we can't get away with talking about the bonus shop. So the bonus shop, it sells you a bunch of different things, a bunch of different gear, a bunch of XP pods for a certain amount of mana. Now, while it might not seem at first like wasting all your mana on buying this is good, actually, over time, you will need this because it costs stamina to actually get this gear. So if you can save yourself a couple runs by just buying the gear for a little bit of mana, it's well worth the amount of mana you put to do it. So even though later on, right now it doesn't cost too much, but later on down the line it starts costing a lot. Even though it starts costing a lot, it's still going to save you stamina over time. So stamina save is jewels saved, so you want to buy it whenever you can from the bonus shop. However, if you have like hundreds and thousands of the same item, in that case, it's probably fine to ignore it. But otherwise, just buy everything you see in the bonus shop. Whenever you get an opportunity, make sure you do PvP, because PvP, as a player early on, rewards you with a lot of jewels for the all-time best reward. So, as a new player, just winning one battle already gets me about a third of the way to a 10 pull. So, and as you go on, you'll get more and more jewels. You can be rewarded with, I believe, over 20,000 jewels just from doing PvP. So make sure whenever you get a chance to do Arena. If you're not too into Arena, still doing it once a day is good, because the daily gives you, I believe, 80,000 mana. So that 80,000 mana adds up over time. So it's always worth doing no matter what. Okay, so here's a very important tip that a lot of people have told me that they didn't even know this was a thing. But basically, when you start off in a dungeon, we're going to do this just for the video, but I would not recommend, if you could do the next one, to do the next one. Also in dungeon, one more thing before while I'm mentioning this. When you're doing dungeon, it's always best to do the next dungeon no matter what. Even if you can't complete the whole dungeon, as long as you can get all the stages, all the like floors done. If you can't beat the boss, that's fine. But as long as you do the floors, you'll get more dungeon coins overall. So it's better just to do the floors. That's one thing people didn't tell me about. Another thing people didn't tell me about, and I didn't know this until my friend just said, why don't you just use the support? And I was like, there's a support? And it's right here. There's an if you are in a clan, which by the way, make sure to join a clan quickly as possible. We have our own clan. If you wanna come by, check it out, Otaku Haven. We have two clans actually. We have one for like more casual team and one for my semi-competitive team. And yeah, so we can just borrow support. And honestly, if you just borrow a higher level support that's probably rank 7, meaning that they have a golden border around them, that's probably good enough to actually do dungeons 1 and 2. And if you find anybody with a purple border, Miyako, it's probably good enough to do dungeon 3 even by yourself. So just by doing this. Oh, and in these dungeons, if you don't die and the timer runs out, you don't lose. The dungeon continues. You can keep your team, you can keep going. So there is no reason for you to back out if your team's not dead. Just keep going, keep doing your thing, borrow your support, and just go at it. So I'm gonna borrow my support. It is gonna cost you 50,000 mana. So it is an event spend kind of thing, but it's definitely worth it. I would definitely do it if you can.